Schwab study recent that said 80%, 88% of employees surveyed said a 401k is a must have. So most employees almost kind of expect it when they sign up for a new job. Does it attract talent? I wouldn't say it's like this huge attractor, but I think it does detract talent. What I mean by that, if somebody say, hey, we don't offer a retirement plan, especially the more sophisticated employees, there's the people that are old, care a lot more about the 401k. In their 50s, this is something he probably expects. And if you don't have it, there's probably a good chance he's going to find somebody else who does.
All right. Welcome, everyone, for another episode of the Lift Your Shop podcast. This time we have a new and different style in terms of the podcast. Typically, I know for those of you that have watched us before, we've always had a shop owner and kind of sharing their experience here. But recently, we've had a fair amount of questions in regards to 401k. We posted it in our Facebook group and had a lot of good feedback there where some people were offering insights, a lot of people not knowing what to do and where to go. They were kind of having questions. So I figured, you know what, let's get a 401k financial expert here on the podcast with us. So today we have Tyler Hunt with Sotis Advisors with us. So Tyler, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So Tyler, just to give everyone a background in terms of who you are, what you do, and why you could be of help here in terms of 401ks, getting them created for their shops. Why don't you go over a little bit of that for us?
Yeah, so my company, Sotis Investment Advisors, we're an independent company. We work with thousands and thousands of employees that are in small businesses and medium-sized businesses, and even some large businesses, retirement plans. In the auto repair shop industry, I'll probably gear most of this conversation towards small and medium-sized shops. The retirement plans in this space are, we deal with a unique population. We're not dealing with tech companies. We're not dealing with lawyers, we're dealing with auto repair shops. So a lot of these plans are on the simpler side, less complex, but are structured to be easy for the owners, right? Easy to run, easy to manage. And so that's what Sotis does, is we work with the business owner to create and craft and design a retirement plan that would work well for their employees and their company.
Perfect. Okay. So we'll dig in a little bit today in terms of what that looks like, how much it costs and whatnot. So why don't we just start off, I guess, first off, should they offer a 401k? How do they know they need to?
That's a good question. So there's a Schwab study recent that said 80%, 88% of employees surveyed said a 401k is a must have.
Oh, okay.
So most employees almost kind of expect it when they sign up for a new job.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. And so in terms of that 401k, then, I mean, what does the match look like? Or I guess let's say that maybe let's take a step back. What even doesn't, I know people hear these match terms and things like that. Maybe they don't know what it means. What is that?
Yeah, great question. So a match is an employer contribution to a 401k. So maybe I'll just take a step back here and kind of do a little history of the 401k.
Yeah, that works.
So many people here, your grandpa probably had a pension, right? Mm-hmm. Most people don't have pensions anymore. They've kind of gone away for the most reason because they became expensive for employers. And then the big difference between employers, 401k, and a pension is the employer bears the risk in a pension, whereas in a 401k, the employee bears the risk of the investments. So they become cheaper and less risky. So employers have, over time, most all of them are doing 401ks now compared to pensions. So when it comes to the employer contribution, you don't have to do a match, or you can do a lot of a match. Mm-hmm. The most common is about 3 or 4%. Okay. So Fidelity, they have a cool study that looked at the auto repair industry in general. The average, most common matching formula was dollar for dollar up to 3%, and then 50% up to for the next 2%. So basically what that comes out to be is a 4% total contribution. And that was the most common formula for auto repair industry.
Gotcha. Okay. And that's depending obviously on their salary that they're doing and whatnot. Okay. Awesome. So then I guess with that being said, for a 401k, I mean, how long is it hard to set up? How long does it take? Like what kind of time frame typically are we looking at here? Because a lot of shop owners, again, they know like, okay, I want to offer a 401k, but I'm not really sure where to begin. How long is this going to take me?
Yeah, good question. 401ks have become easier and easier to start. So the first question is asking yourself, I would ask yourself about payroll. Who's your payroll provider? Because you want to make sure the 401k and the payroll company talk to each other technology wise. You want this to be as automated as possible. Next step would be, how do you want this 401k to look? How do you want it designed? Most people are going to set it up to where the employee can contribute X amount of their paycheck. And then you also have a match. What provider do you choose? Well, it's going to depend. Generally, I'll ask them several questions about their business, etc. And then we'll make it, just get it started. Generally, to get it up and running, 1 to 2 months. The reason that might sound like a long time is the IRS does require you to give notices to your employees, for example, like a 30-day notice. So average is about 2 months to get a plan up and running.
Gotcha. Okay. And then in terms of once it's running, is there anything that the owner themselves needs to do, or do they rely a lot on just the financial advisor to take care, like someone like yourself to take care of it for them, or how's it look?
Great question. A 401k can be mostly automated now. So
Perfect.
Getting money from payroll to the 401k each pay period, assuming they can talk to each other technology wise, can mostly be automated. Generally, an owner should be doing at least a once a year meeting with the advisor on the plan to say, how's my plan doing? What's my plan costing me? What's our match? Should we change it? What are the fees? So you're talking about at least once a year, you should be having a formal meeting. But other than that, it can be mostly automated.
Okay, nice. Then I guess take a slightly different direction in terms of the 401k. Obviously, we're hearing that it's important. It's a nice to have for employees that are kind of expecting it. Would you say that it attracts talent at all? And if so, if it does attract talent, at what level of match do you think is necessary to like differentiate themselves?
That's a good question. Does it attract talent? I wouldn't say it's like this huge attractor. It's going to all of a sudden make everybody want to come work for you, right?
Yeah.
But I think it does detract talent. What I mean by that, if somebody, say, hey, we don't offer a retirement plan, especially the more sophisticated employees, maybe your managers, the people that are older, they care a lot more about the 401k, because they're approaching retirement. Somebody in their 50s, he's probably running the show now. This is something he probably expects. And if you don't have it, there's probably a good chance he's gonna, find somebody else who does. Yeah, so I think it's more of an expectation than an attractor.
Okay, no, perfect. That's great to know. And I think on average right now, technicians are a little bit on the older end. I mean, obviously, the industry is trying to do different ways to attract new, younger talent, just to make sure that there's a good blend of age groups. But I mean, right now, current time, most of the technicians are a little bit older, and so I think this is where it's important to understand this aspect. Now, a big hurdle for some I've heard is just like they feel like they're too small or they're not ready for it. Like what would you do you need to be a certain size before you begin, or is it just, I mean, anyone can start it regardless of size?
That's a great question. So the answer is nobody's too small for a retirement plan for their business. Now, I will back up a step here. The primary reason somebody does not start a 401k plan, small business, is usually cost, right? And they think, it's going to cost us, a lot of money, and we don't have that. So the answer is yes, there is a cost. So, but the government recently addressed that in December and created amended tax credits. So let me kind of explain to you what the government did in simple terms. So they created a tax credit. If you start a 401k plan, basically they're going to cover up to $5,000 a year in fees. So, and that lasts for 3 years. So your first 3 years should basically be free or nearly free after you factor in the tax credits. So that was a big motivator to do that. The government also rolled out another tax credit to basically give almost up to $1,000 to your employees, in the covering and matching dollars.
Oh,
So
wow. Okay.
that's probably not going to cover all of it,
Yeah.
but 1,000 per employee is pretty generous.
Mm.
So that phases out after a few years as well. But so that was kind of the hurdle to get it initially started, was cost to a lot of people. And that's why these tax credits were rolled out, to make it a lot more affordable to get started.
Nice. Okay. And then the tax credits, things like that, obviously that's something that the CPA can just look in and take care of. Okay. Great. Then in terms of cost, like, I mean, is there a set dollar figure that these plans start to create?
Great question. So, I just went out and grabbed a little industry data. So, for example, Vanguard's pricing is pretty simple, and I think it's easy to understand. So, if you have between 1 and 15 employees, $3,975 per year is their flat fee to run a 401k at Vanguard. A lot of people, so you're talking under $4,000, which is under the $5,000 tax credit. So your plan comes out to be basically free for the first 3 years. In the fintech space, there has been a lot of people trying to disrupt the retirement plan space, especially on small employers. So maybe you've probably heard, like, Vestwell, Human Interest, Guideline. These are just some names. There's a lot of them out there. Even like the names like Paychex, ADP, they try to create retirement plans that are attractive to small businesses. So just to give you an example with Vestwell and how they're a fintech company, how like their pricing could work. So, for example, how they do it is in monthly, $150 a month base fee plus $8 per participant, right? So if you had 20 employees, that comes out to $3,720 per year. So granted that you have less employees, it's cheaper. So anyways, that's kind of how they work their pricing. But so all in all, under 5,000 is very, very achievable to get the tax credits.
Gotcha. Okay. No, that's great to know. And I think most shops probably fall in that 1 to 20 range. Obviously, some of you that have multiple locations, it's going to be a little bit bigger. But what does that cost look like on is there like different brackets? Is there like a per participant above 20 or whatever it is? Like, what does that look like typically?
Yeah, great question. So on that one we just talked about, Vestwell, that just keeps going up as you each adding an employee. You're talking $8 per employee. And now I will say that's a participating employee. So if you have an employee that's not eligible or not participating, right, then you don't get charged for that. So a lot of employers, to make this more cost effective, they'll have an eligibility period, right? Yeah, auto repair shops, I'm seeing usually about 6 months on average, and all the way up to 1 year. So let's say you went with 1 year, right? Everybody that's less than a year is not going to be eligible, and also you don't have to pay for them either. So anyways, there's some ways to structure this to make it maybe more affordable if you want it to be.
Gotcha. So that's interesting in terms of eligibility and when they can like start. But then I've also heard about like a vesting period, like after first year 20% is recognized, the second year 40, so on and so forth. Like, is that commonplace, or is that
yeah?
I don't know what.
Great question. So vesting simply means regarding the employer contribution, the match. How long do you have to work to keep the match? So the most generous is going to be immediate, right? So if somebody has a safe harbor 401k, safe harbor word means automatically pass, right? That formula we discussed earlier, which is a 4% match, is what's called a safe harbor match. That is immediately vested. So those employees that are getting their 4%, if they terminate and go to a new job, they take that money with them and it's theirs. So the most aggressive you can be regarding vesting is spread over 6 years. So how that works is the first year is 0% vested, and then 20% per year after that. So if an employee hits their 2-year mark, they'd be 20% vested. And if they terminate at that point, they keep 20% and 80% goes back to the employer. And it's usually based off their hire date. So it incentivizes employees to stay longer.
Gotcha. I mean, we wouldn't want to make them feel like they're being held a hostage for it. But I think you're providing a match, especially maybe if you provided a match maybe a little bit more generous than the average. I don't think a vesting schedule could harm a shop at all. I think it's just a benefit of like just kind of creating a stickiness within their company.
Yeah, great question. So a lot of employers like that because it does create stickiness, right? Especially if you have a generous match, right? If you have a generous match, employees are going to want to participate. And then, if employees hitting their 4-year mark, they might be thinking, if I could stay an extra 2 more years, right, I'm going to retain quite a bit of money, right? So it does incentivize them to stay.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, I love that. Definitely things I'm not, for those listening still, hopefully you are still listening. These are things I'm actively thinking about as well for our company. And granted, yes, we're not an auto repair shop, but we're also thinking about 401K's, how to best provide for our clients. So these are, real-time questions for me, for me as well as we go through this. Let's talk a little bit more about the tax credits, because obviously everyone loves tax credits, but for a lot of us, our CPAs and things like that take care of it for us. But what was the tax credit created? And again, is it very easy to qualify, or is there a bunch of hoops and loops that you need to do sometimes for some of these tax credits? Let's talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, great question. So I'll really talk about the 3 tax credits that are going to be affecting you or out there for you, right? The one is up to $5,000 a year to cover plan fees, right? So you can get that for 3 years, and that's for businesses up to 50 employees. Once you're over 50 employees, there's a phase out. Okay.
Okay.
So and now I'm generally speaking towards smaller businesses, right? Think less than 50 employees.
Yep.
Then there's also, a credit for it matches, right? So you're talking for small businesses with up to 50 employees, you'll get a new tax credit up to $1,000 per employees, making less than $100,000 a year. So basically, most of your employees are probably making less than 100,000, right? The government will cover up to $1,000 per employee in the form of a match, which is really cool. And that's phased out after over 5 years.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. So then that aspect, does the owner need to keep track of that?
So great question. So let's just say you went with Vanguard as your provider, or Vestwell, or really any of them, right? At the end of the year, they're going to give you a spreadsheet that tells you how much employees got in the form of a match, how much you paid in fees. I would take that, give it straight to your CPA, and they'll calculate the tax credits for you.
Okay, awesome. And then in terms of for those maybe doing investing, or even if they're not, does that money get taken out automatically through their payroll system and goes to whatever account of the employee, or is that something they need to make sure they have saved up, at the end of the year, it gets taken out at one time?
Great question. So the employer can put in the match as frequently as per payroll, or they can do as infrequent as once a year. At the end of the year, you look at the dollar amounts, and you can just do a one-time lump sum for the whole year. So you can do it. Most people will do it per payroll.
Okay. Yeah. It's harder to keep track of one big lump sum at the very end of the year and be like, oh crap, I needed all that for the match of everyone on the team. So, okay. That makes sense. Then in terms of, so I know you mentioned Vanguard and some of these other ones. Seems like I've heard of Vanguard before. I know they're one of the more popular types of funds that give back pretty good returns. But in terms of where the money is invested, is this something that also the owner or the employees get to select? Is it usually set packages that they just pick, or how does that work?
A great question. So on a 401k plan, the investments, really you can do, there's a wide range of investments you can have in a 401k plan. Typically you would work with somebody like me, an advisor, to choose an investment lineup. Typically you're talking 20-ish options, right? It could be some more less, right? And granted, it's customizable.
Yeah.
So you're going to see options, stocks, bonds, real estate, cash, that type of thing, money market, that type of thing.
Yeah.
In addition to that, you can do what's called self-directed, where you can go buy pretty much anything you want. You could go put all your money in Apple. I'm not recommending that, but it can be very, very flexible in terms of what the money is invested in.
Okay. And then for those individuals that want to like change up their plans, is that something that like they have to reach out to like someone like you that's working with the owner, or do they just go in and do it themselves, or how does that work?
Great question. So typically the employee will log into their 401k, wherever it's at, and then they can choose, I want to change all my money to be invested in X or Y, and hit submit, and then it's reinvested how they choose. So it's very flexible, and assuming the employer allows that, which most of them do now, so they can choose or change their investments at any point in time.
Okay, that's great to know. And then for the employer, like how often, like once, so obviously we're talking about the time frame of getting set up takes about 2 months, but in that time frame where, I mean, I know they don't need to meet with you every single day for 2 months. Like, what does that initial meeting look like? Like, how long are we thinking it takes for someone like you to meet with them to then say, yep, all right, this is all the paperwork I need. It'll be set up in 2 months, or is like there are a lot of touch points there, or what is that process?
Great question. You're talking a series of probably 3 or 4 phone calls, getting the plan set up. Or, you're going to talk you're going to go over pricing. You're going to talk over plan design, meaning what your match is going to be. Do you want to do loans? You want to do, withdrawals? How easy you want to make the money to get out? How do you want the money vested? All these type of things. So you're probably talking a series of 3 or 4 calls to get the plan set up. Now, down the road, if you want to make changes to the plan, that's perfectly fine. You can always make changes.
Yeah. And then in terms of like access to someone like yourself, like, is it just on them to reach out, or is there like usually one meeting a year, or what is that?
Yeah, great question. So the advisor on the 401k plan, you should meet with at least 2 meetings a year. One with the owner or the investment committee, as it's formally spoken, to go over the high level how the plan is doing from the employer perspective. Second is you should have an employee meeting, meaning how do you get signed up? What's the match? Go over those things with the employees, right? Encourage participation, answer questions. And third, people can call us at any point in time, right? I mean, I get calls every day from people asking questions about their account, whatever it might be. So those are probably the 3 forms of communication you'll see.
Okay. No, that's really, really good to know. So, I mean, it seems like the process is pretty simple. Obviously, it's because it's a common thing where you just feel a little bit worried about us as another thing to deal with. The government and financial institutions is like, oh my goodness, how it can seem overwhelming. But hopefully, as we've chatted a little bit about this, it seems, at least for myself, it has seemed a lot simpler in terms of that hurdle to getting this created for the team and getting them to be excited about, hey, you're working with us, we want to reward you for contributing to your retirement, so on and so forth.
Yeah, good question. And I think to make it simple and easy and automated and not take up a lot of your time, you just want to structure it well from the beginning, right? So when I say structure it well, like, who's your providers? How are you setting this up, plan design wise, and communicating well to the employees, right? If you can set it up well to begin in, it can be a very smooth and easy long-term process.
Gotcha. Well, awesome. Well, I mean, that's kind of high level some of the questions I had. Is there anything that maybe I'm missing or not recalling to ask that you think would be a really good item that owners need to know about?
I think I'm gonna touch on just a few things that maybe people should consider if when it comes to 401k plans that maybe we haven't touched on yet. So one is, what is the difference between a simple 401k and a 401k, a simple and a 401k, right? There are 2 different types of retirement plans. Another one is called a SEP, right? I'm not going to talk about that. I don't think really anybody on here would use it. Maybe if they're just like a one-man shop, but a simple and a 401k are both retirement saving plans for businesses.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few differences here. Simple, you can put in less. 15,500 is the limit you can put in, where a 401k is 22,500. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few advantages the 401k has. One, much more flexible. When I say flexible, we're talking the match is more flexible, eligibility. You could do loans, you can do, there's a lot of strategy in there where you get flexibility. Second really cool thing about the 401k that a simple doesn't have is what's called the Roth feature. Traditionally, at least, Roth has been a way to put money in so it grows tax-free. Simples in the past have just been pre-tax. So if you have an existing simple, you're probably only putting money in pre-tax. And then third is, on the 401k, I do like how a lot of things can be automated, that whereas a simple, a lot of things are manual. And I'll give you one example here. On a simple plan, a lot of times the money is not invested automatically. Most providers, the employee has to go in there and invest the money, each pay period. So I've come across a lot of simples where the employer is putting money into these accounts for the employees and even themselves as the owner, but the money's just sitting there in cash and not getting invested because they're not logging in and investing at each pay period, where a 401k, that's automated, right? It's automatically invested. So I don't see a lot of people opening simples anymore. I know, and they're actually in the past have been popular among the auto repair shop people because they were cheap to set up, right? Administrative costs is basically nothing, right? So, but I've seen going forward, pretty much everybody is going towards 401k and not simples because automation and tax credits. So anyways, that's probably something of interest to your employees. And Grant, if anybody wants to have a bigger, further discussion, you're welcome to reach out to me. I'll have my contact information at the end.
Yeah, we'll drop it here after, when we wrap up at the very end. But yeah, no, that's really, I didn't know that the difference between simple and 401k. It's a simple, for sure. I know someone like myself, that'd be another task that I'd have to remember to make sure that we're investing, not just sitting on cash lane. Maybe sometimes during some seasons, yes, maybe it'd be beneficial that you forgot because it's like, oh, we didn't go down. But in most cases, especially over the long term, not remembering for a long amount of time will be very unfavorable and probably have a lot of unhappy people. So
that's correct. And then I will say this, what kind of support should I get on the retirement plan? This is something I think a lot of people get sold on from when you're working with an advisor. Okay, so I'm an advisor. There's really a couple things I think set apart advisors. One's called how they're paid, right? So I'm what's called a fee-only advisor, and there's others that are commission, right? Fee-only tends to be more ethical or more, eliminates conflict of interest. So I would recommend that'd be something I ask, whether you work with me or work with somebody else. I would ask, are you fee-only and how do you get paid, right?
Yep.
Okay, that's if they're commission based or can be commissioned, I probably would lean towards somebody who's fee only. Granted, I'm biased, but I think that's pretty self-explanatory.
Why? I guess
Yeah, great question. I mean, especially in small businesses, I'll see people get put in these commission-based products where they don't see the fees, but realistically, I'll tell you, I saw one recently. I'm not going to say who it was, but every time they were putting money into the plan, there was a 5% commission getting taken off right off the top. They were putting money into their retirement account, which that's detrimental to long-term returns. That, granted, that's very rare that you'd see something that bad, but anyways, that really crushes your long-term growth. Yeah. So and then there's one other thing. There's something called a fiduciary. This means, are they looking out for your best interest? So the highest form of fiduciary is what's called 338. That means the advisor is accepting the liability for the investments, right? So granted, if they performed or if there were bad selections or weren't monitored properly or for whatever reason, right, the advisor could be held liable. So that's something I would look for. Someone call it 338 advisor. And there's another type of fiduciary. I think it's interesting to, when you're asked the question, how easy should it be? Well, it's called 316. 316 simply means, is the who's taking responsibility for the administrative point of the plan. Okay. So who's signing the tax return, right? There's something called a 5500.
Yep.
The administrator could sign it or the employer could sign it. Generally, you want somebody else to sign that, right?
Yeah.
Second is like the administrative portion, sending out notices. Do you want to be sending those out or have the administrator send those out? Granted, you want the administrator, right?
Yep.
If you're still doing manual paper and mailing it to your employees, right, you probably need to upgrade your 401k plan. So and if you have an existing 401k plan, I probably should talk to this more at the beginning, but it's probably a good time to look at it. The retirement plan industry has gotten much more cost effective because technology has driven down costs and automated things. But like I mentioned earlier about the notices, a lot of the old school ones are still like mailing them, telling the employer to print them out and distribute, where that should be email, electronic, and that drives down cost, right? So if you have an existing 401k plan that's been, and you haven't looked at it for 2 or 3 years or longer, I would call up somebody like myself or another, fiduciary advisor and say, hey, let's look at my 401k plan and can it be improved? So the answer is more than likely yes. From fiduciary, cost, and investments and employee education are probably all improvements you can make, potentially at a lower cost as well.
Yeah, no. And now that we're talking about existing, I don't know why, like now that you brought that up, like I have a bunch of questions in terms of like, I'm sure a lot of shops already have 401ks set up, but then what is it hard to then switch to a different person? How much time does that take? Like, what does that all look like?
Yeah,
if you start over again, I don't know.
So to move a 401k plan is about a 2 to 3 month process.
Okay.
So reason being is you have to notify the employee, give them the IRS, notifications, your plan's being moved. Here's where, here's, why, etc. And then, most of it is going to be taken care of for you. But as an employer, you will need to be on several calls to make sure it's going smoothly, data's moving, etc. So, but yeah, I mean, if you got your plan started a while ago and it's been a while, it's definitely time to look at that.
Yeah. So, but for like the fees, if they're switching over, does that like the startup fees, does that start again? Like every single time you like do a big switch like this, or is that already taken care of in the get-go?
Great. From a cost perspective, there's something called economies of scale. Okay. The bigger the 401k plan in terms of dollars, the better pricing you're going to get. That's pretty standard, right? So if your plan is let's say over $1 million, right? You're going to get a lot better pricing than a plan that has $100,000 in it, right? And pretty much it's pretty general. Like your plan grows over time as long as people are contributing to it. So cost wise, more than likely, if your plan has grown, your fees will go down.
Interesting. Okay. And then once everything officially moves over, I mean, it's business like usual. I mean, things are automated. If someone, say, wanted to at least have things looked at, like what they currently have, like, and they were to pick you in terms of, hey, Tyler, can you help look at what I currently have? Is that something that costs them one, and then is that something that it's a one-time meeting that then you could give them a good idea, or is it like multiple meetings that would be needed to like really?
Yeah, great question. So first thing I would do is, have a conversation with them and ask them for their plan documents. So there's several plan documents. You could probably log on your provider's website. One's called like the summary plan description. This talks about what your match is, your eligibility, that type of stuff. You may want to make some tweaks there. Second form I'd ask for is something called the 408B2 fee disclosure. This outlines pretty much all the fees, who's getting paid what. Those are generally the two documents I start with to look at and then get a good idea of where you're at. And then the next step would be to shop the plan. So you go out to all the providers in the marketplace that would probably be a good fit for that employer, and then ask for a quote, and then go from there.
Awesome. And then I'm guessing most people use QuickBooks right now, at least. And so I'm assuming QuickBooks can integrate with pretty much any 401k plan at this point.
Yeah, great question. QuickBooks can integrate with, most everybody.
Okay.
So, I mean, QuickBooks is pretty friendly.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think most of the shops are using some sort of either QuickBooks or payroll, or maybe Gusto or some of these other ones. But I'm sure with them at least leveraging software for payroll, I'm assuming it then integrates to most of the things we're talking about here. So I think that'd be good. Well, I mean, that again, is any other questions, any other thoughts? I think we went in a great direction there. We potentially missed a good amount and cutting it short, but yeah, I'm glad that we kind of took that direction. But anything else that maybe owners should know about?
No, I mean, I think we've covered on a lot of the topics that I think somebody would ask about a 401k. But if you have questions, my name's Tyler Hunt. I work with small business owners, medium-sized business owners all the time on their retirement plans. This is my niche. This is a retirement plan. This is pretty much what I'm in all day. So if you have any questions, Kelsey can put out my email and my phone number.
Do you want to share your email here?
Yeah, sure. My email is thunt@soltisadvisors.com, or you can text me or call me at 801-318-4013.
Perfect. All right. Well, again, thank you, Tyler, for being here with us. And those shop owners, hopefully you got some good knowledge in regards to your 401k here. I advise, regardless if you reach out to Tyler or not, I recommend you do, just at least to get another pair of eyes on what you currently have. Make sure it's as efficient as possible. Because I've known Tyler for a long time as well, and he'll be very transparent with you in terms of, hey, this is as good a plan as you're going to get. I think you have a great setup. Or, hey, you're in a world of hurt. You need to make some changes really quick, regardless of if it's with him or not. He'll be able to give you that good clarity. So I appreciate you all being here. If you haven't liked or subscribed yet to this point, please click the like and subscribe button. But again, we'll talk to you guys soon. Take care. Bye.
See you.